The scream was short, sharp, then swallowed by the trees. Ella spun around, flashlight beam jittering through the fog. "Cassie," she whispered, but her voice felt tiny in the freezing night. No answer, just a rustling of leaves, too rhythmic, too calculated. Ella's boots crunched on pine needles as she took 2 slow steps forward, her breath visible in the air. She scanned the woods again. The tent was still behind her, zippered shut. The fire had gone out, her phone was dead, and her best friend had just vanished. Something was watching her. Just 18 hours earlier, Cassie had begged her to go. "You need this, Elle. Real oxygen. Trees. Space. No notifications, no guilt, no memories." Ella had almost said no, not because she didn't want the escape. She did. She needed to forget everything. What she saw, what she lost, but she didn't want to fake smiles around a campfire, while her soul still felt like shattered glass still. Cassie always knew how to convince her. Just one night. To best friends, no service, no noise. So they packed a borrowed tent, a 2-person sleeping bag, some trail mix, and left Vancouver before dawn. Drove for hours north into British Columbia's dense wilderness. The area was popular but secluded, a pocket of peace. When they arrived, it really did feel magical. The trail was quiet, the air clean, the trees ancient. They set up camp by the river, laughed as they tried to build a fire, talked about college, exes, future dreams. Cassie even managed to get Ella to smile, really smile, for the first time in weeks. But as the sun dropped, so did something else. The mood. The first signet started with the smell. Rotting meat, faint, sour, unnatural. Ella noticed it around dusk, just after the last light slipped behind the trees. Cassie smelled it too, but shrugged it off. Probably a dead animal nearby, she said. But Ella knew that smell. She'd grown up on a farm. That wasn't roadkill. That was something older, something that had been dragged. Then came the sounds. Snap, crunch, pause. Too heavy to be raccoons, too methodical for deer. By 10 p.m., they'd zip themselves inside the tent, nervously laughing it off. "No axe murderer's gonna hike for hours into the forest just to kill us," Cassie joked. But at 12 a.m., Ella woke up gasping for breath. Her chest burned, like the air inside the tent had thickened. Cassie was gone. Where was Cassie? The zipper was half open, Cassie's shoes still inside, her phone on the sleeping bag, screen cracked. Ella blinked hard. Maybe she went to pee, maybe she was just outside. She stepped out into the freezing darkness, flashlight in one hand, the bear spray in the other. "Cass," she called. Silence. Then, behind her, where the river curved, a sound, giggling, soft, childlike. Not Cassie's. Ella's blood turned cold. "Cassie, this isn't funny," she called again. Still no answer, only that same low laugh, like it was echoing from inside the trees themselves. The search didn't run. She couldn't. Not yet. Instead, she moved toward the sound, sweeping the flashlight left to right. And there, 20 feet ahead, something pale moved behind a tree. "Cassie," she whispered. Then the sound came again, giggling, yes, but this time layered, like two people giggling in perfect sync. Then 3. Ella stepped back. Her foot snapped a branch. Whatever it was, it stopped laughing. Silence. Then, a whisper. Clear as glass, she wanted to stay. Ella turned and ran. Back to the tent, zipped it shut, locked the bear spray in her grip, and cried silently, barely daring to breathe. Morning brought no relief. Cassie was still gone. Ella searched the entire camp perimeter, screaming her name until her voice cracked. She found footprints leading into the woods. Just one set, Cassie's, but they stopped abruptly by a mossy tree. No return prints, no signs of struggle, no blood, just vanishing. She hiked the 2 hours back to the ranger station, shaking and hollow. They listened, took her seriously, sent a search team. They found no Cassie. No prints, no clothing, no trace. But they did find something else. A tree, large, ancient, twisted, with a message carved into its bark. She belongs to the forest now. The letters were fresh, still bleeding sap. The aftermath story made headlines. Young woman vanishes on girls' camping trip. Cassie's parents were devastated, blamed Ella. The police suspected foul play, but found no proof. They never found the Body.Ella moved back home, tried therapy, tried erasing it, but she could in single quotes T. because sometimes at night she heard that laugh again, and twice now. While walking through city parks, she'd seen a girl thin pale long black hair just watching from behind trees and one time when Ella turned around, she swore she saw Cassie's boots. The truth she couldn't say out loud. Cassie didn't just disappear, she was taken. Ella remembered something Cassie had said before the trip. Just offhand, I feel like I'm suffocating in my life. I just want to disappear. Had something in the forest hurt her? Did the woods choose people like her, ones who wanted out, even for a moment? Ella didn't believe in ghosts before, or curses, or evil. But now, she believed in something. Something old, something that doesn't like to be watched, something that still had her best friend. 1 year later, Ella returned to the trail. She didn't tell anyone. She brought no phone, no tent, just her hiking boots, a flashlight, and a knife. She found the same camping spot by the river, sat down on the same mossy log, waited until dusk, and whispered, "Take me instead." For a while, nothing happened. Then she heard the laughter again. This time it sounded familiar. Cassie's voice, clear, joyful. Closer. Ella stood, eyes wide. But instead of running, she smiled, then walked into the woods, and was never seen again. It started with a single knock, soft, measured. At 2:17 in the morning, Becca sat up in bed, heart thudding. Her apartment was dark, silent, still smelling of campfire and wet pine. Another knock, then another. 3 slow taps, like a finger or a claw. She held her breath and turned toward the door. No one was supposed to know she was back. No one even knew she'd left. She and Mark had gone off the grid for a reason. A weekend away in Banff, no phones, no socials. They'd hiked in alone, camped in the mountains alone. But now someone was knocking. And somehow, she already knew it had followed them home. Just 3 days earlier, Becca had agreed to the trip because Mark needed it. He'd been off since the car accident last fall. Distant, moody, nightmares that made him sweat and scream. He rarely spoke about what he saw when the pickup flipped off that icy highway, killing his brother. He just said, "I need to be somewhere quiet." So she said yes. Just one weekend. No service, no signal, no interruptions, just the two of them. And the forest, they chose a lesser-known trail east of Banff. A beautiful loop trail that ran through old-growth forest and near a glacial lake. Rugged, silent, and isolated. Perfect. Except at WASN single quotes T. The man in the tree's first day was fine, cold but beautiful. Becca took photos of chipmunks and frozen ferns. Mark even smiled a few times. A real smile. They made camp early. A small fire, hot tea, marshmallows. Talked about getting a dog. About moving to Montreal. About what healing might actually look like. But around 1 a.m., Becca woke to the sound of branches cracking. She nudged Mark awake. "Probably a moose," he mumbled. But Becca wasn't so sure. It wasn't the volume. It was the pattern. It wasn't like something walking. It was like something pacing in a circle around the tent, over and over. Then it stopped. Silence. Until the sound of a stick being snapped in half. Just outside the fabric. They didn't sleep the rest of the night. The carvings. The next morning, they found marks on the trees around their site. Straight vertical carvings. Deep, not made by animals. 3 lines on each trunk. Equal spacing. High up, too high for Becca to reach. "Maybe kids messing around," Mark said, forcing a laugh. But there were no other campers out there. They moved sites that afternoon, hiked 2 hours east, and set up again in a fresh clearing near a stream. But the second night was worse. They heard whistling. Short, repeating every 10 seconds, like a signal. Mark shouted into the dark, "Who's there?" No answer, only the echo of the whistle, at exactly the same pitch and rhythm, again and again. For hours. The tracks. They found them the next morning. Not boots, not paws. Bare feet. Naked. Adult human feet in the frozen dirt. Dozens of prints circling their tent in a perfect oval. No shoes. "Who the hell walks out here with no shoes?" Becca whispered. Mark stared at the trail. "These weren't here last night," You sure? I walked this side before dinner. Nothing. He grabbed her hand. We're leaving. Now. They hiked in silence. 3 hours later, as they neared the gravel trailhead, Becca looked back one last time and swore, halfway up a ridge, between the trees. A tall figure was watching them, safe at home. Or not. They got back to Calgary. Late that night. Exhausted, silent. Mark dropped her off at her apartment, kissed her forehead, and said, "Let's not talk about it for a few days." Becca agreed. But silence didn't keep the horror away. That night, it knocked on her door. Just once. Then 3 knocks. Then silence. She texted Mark the next morning, "Weird dreams. Thought I heard something." He didn't reply. She called him. Straight to voicemail. That afternoon, she drove to his apartment. His front door was wide open. Gone. No signs of forced entry. No blood. No struggle. Just gone. His keys on the table. His boots by the door, and scratched into the wood of the floor. Near the window. "I see you when you sleep." She called the police. Filed the report. Told them everything. Well, everything except the barefoot prints and the whistling in the woods. They assumed he ran off again. PTSD, grief. But Becca knew better. She hadn't told anyone this, but that first night in the woods, she'd woken up to see Mark standing outside the tent. Just standing. Naked. Facing away from her. When she called out to him, he didn't respond. Then slowly turned and whispered, "It's in the trees." Becca wasn't Safeth knocking returned the next night. Then again the next, always at 17 a.m. No footsteps, no voices, just that knock. 3 times. Always 3. She moved to her parents' house in Edmonton. It followed. She tried sleeping in her car. It knocked on the roof. One night, she left her phone on record and passed out from exhaustion. The next morning, she checked the file. There were whispers. Not words, just voices, dozens of them. Layered, shuffling, breathing, and right before the file cut out, a sharp, clear whisper, "You looked at it. You belong to it now." Research and regret. Becca searched forums, subreddits, threads on Canadian legends, lost, hikers, skinwalkers, wendigos. Most theories were nonsense, but one post stuck out, from a retired park ranger named Julian, who had worked in Banff in the 80s. He talked about a stretch of forest where people vanished without a trace. Said it wasn't wildlife or weather. Said it was something else. Something that didn't like being seen. He called it the Hollow Watcher, a thing that lived between the trees, tall, silent, human-shaped, but not human. He claimed that if you locked eyes with it, it followed. Forever. The mirror test on night. Becca caught her reflection blinking out of sync. She stood frozen in the hallway mirror, watching. Her body still, her breath held, and her reflection blinked again. Too late. Then smiled. She smashed the mirror, glass in her palms, blood running down her wrist. She fell to the floor and screamed until her neighbor kicked in the door. Breaking point. She tried checking herself into a psych facility. Told them it was PTSD from a bad trip. But that night, it came again. Knocked on the locked facility window. She screamed so loud the staff thought she was having a seizure. They sedated her. And in her dream, it was there, sitting at the edge of her bed, fingers like roots, mouth a shadow, whispering, "Mark's with us now." The last hike. Becca couldn't live like this, couldn't sleep, couldn't shower without checking behind the curtain, couldn't walk past trees without seeing eyes. So she did the only thing that made sense. She returned back to the trail, alone this time. She brought a flare gun, a knife, a photo of Mark, and a journal. Hiked to the exact place they camped that first night. And waited. At 17 a.m. It arrived. She didn't scream, didn't run. She looked directly at it, tall, impossible to focus on, like a shape wrapped in fog and moonlight. And she said, "Take me instead." Her journal was found a year later. Hikers found a notebook in a Ziploc bag, hidden in a tree hollow. It was Becca's. Inside were the final pages of her writing. "It doesn't kill the way we think. It becomes you. It waits for you to forget it. Then it moves through your shadow." Mark didn't run. He changed, like I'm changing. It needs eyes to see, so it takes ours. The hikers turned the page. There were no more words, only a drawing. A tall, featureless figure standing between trees. With two faces, one that looked like Mark, the other that looked like Becca. There's something under the floorboards. That's what Chloe whispered on their second night, and Wes laughed it off, teasing her like always. But deep down, he heard it too, scratching, then a breath, then silence. He told himself it was just animals, just the old wood creaking in the cold. But then Chloe started talking to it. And everything changed. 2 weeks earlier Wes hadn't wanted to go, but Chloe begged. It's been 5 years, babe. I need to face it. She meant Camp Black Hollow, the last place her sister had ever been seen. Her older sister, Lily, had vanished from there during a summer retreat in 2018. 12 girls, 1 counselor, 1 missing girl. No blood, no evidence. Just gone, and silence from the camp staff. The entire place had been shut down for investigation. Reopened quietly last summer with new owners and all new safety policies. Now, Chloe had found out the original Cabin 6, Lily's last known location, was still standing and still bookable. I just want closure, Chloe said. Wes agreed, reluctantly. He booked the whole weekend. The cabinet was isolated, the farthest from the main gate, backed by trees so thick, light barely touched the ground. The inside was dusty, but sturdy. 2 bunk beds, 1 old stove, windows with cracked glass. The floor slanted slightly toward the back corner, like something had been trying to pull the room down. But Chloe didn't seem scared. She looked around slowly, touched the bedpost where Lily's initials had once been carved, and whispered, "Hi, Lily." Wes stood at the door, unsure. That night, the fire crackled low. They sipped cocoa and listened to the forest. Chloe was quiet, too quiet. The hatch was found it by accident. Stepped on a board that gave way under his foot. There was a hidden crawl space beneath the cabin, nailed shut from the inside. When he pried it open, cold air rushed up like a breath from the grave. He lifted the hatch. A single rusted ladder disappeared into darkness. He shone a flashlight inside that saw the dirt, the cobwebs. And a set of small, bare footprints in the dust. Chloe leaned over his shoulder. Is that new? I don't know, Wes said, lying. He'd already seen something else too. Something he couldn't explain. Fingernail scratches, dozens of them, along the dirt wall, leading away from the ladder. Whispers that night. Chloe sat up in bed. Wes woke to her muttering, "Who are you talking to?" He whispered. Chloe didn't answer, just turned slowly toward him, eyes glassy. "She's still here." Wes sat up. "What do you mean?" "I think Lily's under the cabin." Wes's blood turned cold. "Chloe, that's not funny. I'm not joking," she said softly. "She talks to me when I sleep." She pointed to the corner of the cabin, right above where the crawl space was. She said they buried her heart under there. That's why she can't leave. The counselor's journal didn't sleep. At dawn, while Chloe was still resting, he drove into town, found the old library, asked for anything related to Camp Black Hollow. The librarian, an older man with shaking hands, said nothing, just gave him a worn manila folder from the restricted shelf. Inside was a journal. It belonged to the head counselor from 2018. The entries were disturbing. "Lily keeps asking about the woods, says she hears music. Found her digging behind Cabin 6 again. Said she's trying to feed it. Woke up to find Lily standing over my bed. Her eyes were bleeding." The final entry. "The thing she called sister is real. It wants another girl." The crawl space again was returned by noon. Found Chloe standing in the middle of the cabin barefoot, dirt on her fingers, her eyes wide. "What are you doing?" he asked. "I found the tooth," she whispered. She held it up, small, yellowed, cracked. "It looked human. Tell me you didn't go down there." "She wanted me to," Chloe said, smiling. "She said it would bring us closer." Wes grabbed her shoulders. "You're scaring me." Chloe blinked, like snapping out of a dream. I don't remember going down." The scene set at night. Chloe insisted on lighting candles. She said this is how we talk. She's tired of being quiet. Wes tried to leave, tried to get her into the car, but when they reached the clearing, the keys were gone. The tires had been slashed. Back in the cabin, the candles were already lit, arranged in a circle. Chloe sat in the center, her face lit with a strange calm. She said, "It's almost time." Wes stared at her. "Who is she?" Chloe smiled and whispered, "Me." Revelation. Next morning, Wes dug. He couldn't take it anymore. He tore open the crawl space, climbed down into the dirt, and dug with his hands, his flashlight wedged between his teeth. After hours, he found it. A shallow grave, a skeleton, small, adolescent, wrapped in a decaying camp sweatshirt that said, "Black Hollow Summer 18. Around the bones were dozens of teeth, all children's, and something worse, a necklace. He knew it well, because Chloe wore the same one every day, but this one had Lily's name engraved on it. The final night. Slow wasn't Chloe anymore. She stood by the window, staring out into the trees. She said, "It was always me," she whispered. "Lily died so I could wake up." Wes backed toward the door. "You need help." She turned slowly. "You're going to take my place now," she said. Then the wind blew out every candle. The hatch burst open, and something crawled out of the hole. Not Lily, not human, but wearing her face. Aftermath. When rangers found the cabin, it was empty. No blood. No Chloe. No Wes. Just one note, burned into the wall above the hatch. "Cabin 6 always needs to." They sealed the building, condemned it. But locals say if you drive by at night, you can see the people in the window. One whispering, the other trying to scream. The knife was in her hand, not because she planned to use it, but because she finally knew she might have to. Mara stared across the fire at her husband, Ian. His face glowed orange from the flames. Calm, controlled, but everything about him felt wrong. They were 3 days into a healing trip in the woods, a chance to reset their marriage after the miscarriage, the lies, the therapist's advice to reconnect in nature. But something had changed, and it started the moment they arrived at campsite 11. 2 weeks earlier, Mara had done all the planning. Ian, as usual, had just agreed to whatever she decided. She picked a campground in northern Ontario, known for its remote beauty and lack of cell service. A quiet place, few people, only 12 official sites, one main road in Dot. As they checked in, the old park ranger gave them a long look when she saw their assigned plot. "Campsite 11. Hush," she muttered. Then she hesitated, scratched her neck, and added, "Don't wander too far from the boundary flags. Stay inside the circle. Got it?" "What circle?" Ian asked. The ranger pointed to the map. A red dashed line ran around their site. "Those ribbons hanging from the trees, that's your line. Don't cross it at night." "Why?" Mara asked, laughing. But the woman just said, "Because the woods don't like being disturbed after dark." The first night everything started normal. They pitched their tent, made a fire. Ian tried to be romantic, opening the wine, playing their old favorite song from his phone before it lost signal. They talked about trying again, about adoption, about forgiveness. Mara even smiled. But around 2 a.m., something woke her. A sound. Whistling. Low, gentle, coming from the trees. She sat up, heart thudding. Ian was still asleep beside her. The whistling grew louder. Then stopped. Then, a voice, "Help me." It was a child, a girl, just beyond the red ribbons. The girl in white. Next morning, Mara told Ian what she heard. He shrugged. "Probably another camper. You were half asleep." But they hadn't seen or heard anyone else the whole trip. No cars, no voices, nothing. Just woods. Later that day, Mara saw something between the trees. A white dress. Just for a second, but enough to freeze her in place. She walked to the edge of the ribbons, looked beyond. And found a small porcelain doll tied to a tree branch. Its head was cracked, its mouth sewn shut. She didn't tell Ian. Tension builds. The third day, Ian was acting strange, snapping at nothing, speaking under his breath, carving lines into the picnic table with his pocket knife. "You okay?" Mara asked gently. He didn't answer. He just stared at the fire and whispered, "It wants to come inside." That night, Mara zipped the tent up tight, held Ian's hand as he slept, but woke to find him outside the tent, barefoot, standing in the clearing. His eyes were closed. He was talking to someone who wasn't there. And in his hand was the cracked porcelain doll. The lie uncovered. Mara had enough. The next day, she grabbed the car keys and told Ian they were leaving. He didn't move. Then, calmly, He said something that knocked the wind from her chest. I never wanted the baby. Silence. What? She said. I only said I did because I thought it'd fix you. But it was ruining us. Mara felt the world tilt sideways. Tears filled her eyes. Why are you saying this now? He looked up, eyes wide, not angry, but vacant. She showed me. The girl. She said you'd lie about it eventually. Mara stepped back. You spoke to her. She's been waiting for someone like you. The forest's secret that night. Mara unzipped the tent alone. Ian was gone again. She followed the sound, not of whistling now, but weeping, a girl's cry. It led her to the edge of the boundary, where red ribbons fluttered, and beyond them, something moved. She stepped over. The air dropped 20 degrees instantly. A dense silence fell, pressing on her like deep water. She walked until she reached a clearing, and there, in the center, was a small stone circle. Inside it, half buried in moss, were toys. Dolls, teddy bears, plastic tricycles, all cracked, all weather-worn, all placed like offerings. She turned and saw the girl, small, pale, wearing white, standing behind Ian, whispering into his ear. Betrayal. Ian. Mara shouted. He didn't move. The girl's head turned, impossibly slow, until her black eyes locked on Mara. Then Ian lunged at her. Mara screamed, ducked, and fell hard onto the ground. He grabbed her by the wrist, dragging her toward the stone circle. She said you'd make it stop. He muttered, it's always hungry, and you're the last one left. Mara kicked. Fought. Scratched at his face, until finally, he dropped her. But not before he whispered, you lied about the baby. This is your punishment. The fire. Mara didn't run. She grabbed the lantern, ran to the tent. And lit it on fire. The woods hissed. The girl screamed, a high, shrieking sound that echoed across the trees like broken glass. Ian stumbled back, covering his ears. Mara screamed at him, you let it in. Then she took the fire to the boundary, set the red ribbons ablaze. The flames roared, and something inside the woods screamed with them. The girl vanished. Ian collapsed, and the forest finally went silent. Aftermath. Authorities found Mara walking barefoot along the highway. Soot covered, shaking, crying. They brought her to a hospital. Ian was found 2 days later, dehydrated, muttering nonsense about a girl with no mouth. The ranger station confirmed something chilling. Campsite 11 had been closed years ago. A child had gone missing there in the 90s, never found. Legend said her parents used to hang red ribbons, believing they'd protect others from her fate. But no one ever figured out what happened. The site was never meant to be reassigned. Some clerical error, some ghost in the files. The final journal entry. Mara doesn't camp anymore. She lives alone now. Still has nightmares, but she keeps one thing from the trip, a page from her journal. It reads, I thought the woods would help us heal, but they just listened and fed the hurt. Some places aren't haunted because someone died there. They're haunted because someone lied there. And lies echo louder than screams. The end.